everyone, Ryan here from Dorklords Game Club. Another codex has smashed through into our 40k world, the new Astra Militarum Imperial Guard Codex. And here today, we're going to do a review, and I have my wingman, Dorklord's own Imperial Rob.
Well, it's great to be here, Ryan, and I just want to let you viewers know that our reviews are going to cover everything in this book. We have big changes coming to it. We're going to look everything under heavy support, HQs, troops. Everything's been overhauled. There's tons of great stuff in this book, and I'm very excited to show you guys.
This is going to be a great review, guys. There's a lot of new things. Some old things have been taken out. So let's get the review started. As always, guys, with our long review process, what you can do is you can click on the menu right here and select any of the topics that we will be discussing. You want to see troops? Click on troops. You want to see heavy support? Click on heavy support. So you can either sit and watch the entire video or just select what you want to watch. For 5 long years, the Imperial Guard players have used this codex, and it has served them well. But now it's out with the old, in with the new. Welcome to the big changes section. Rob, what are some of the big changes that have happened in the Astra Militarum book?
Well, Ryan, there are a lot of big changes, and I'd like to start with HQ. Finally, guards have tank commanders. It's happened, we've been waiting for it for a while, and a lot of people are very happy. The HQ section has had a huge overhaul with a lot of characters, but unfortunately some characters did not make the cut. Relics? We have relics now. They're called Heirlooms of Conquest, and they're there for good. A few good ones, a few okay ones, none of them really stand out to me. Vehicle war gear. We have tons of it now. From flaming barrels that do damage to attackers, from relic plating that gives you adamantium will. Even auger arrays. Now we can deep strike within 6 inches of vehicles without scattering. Scions are in the book. They've replaced stormtroopers and they're in platoons now. Some people like this, some people don't. I've always been a fan of stormtroopers, but the Scions are here to stay.
So you said that we've lost some of our characters in this new book. How many characters have we lost, and who have we lost?
Well, I tallied up the count, and we've lost 5 characters.
Wow.
Some of our best ones too, like Marbo. Marbo is now gone. Sorry, Sly. We've lost Sergeant Bastogne. We've lost Chenkov, Al Ramid, and Mogul Kamir. They're all gone, and I don't even know if they're coming back.
Well, there has been rumor on the internet that they may make an appearance in future data slates. Do you think that might be the case?
Well, I really hope some of them do make a comeback because a lot of them are well missed.
Now, you also mentioned the HQ section. You said there was an overhaul. What exactly do you mean by that?
A lot of HQs that used to take up force organization slots no longer do, and now we have more options for our command squads. It's a very big change, and a lot of people really like it.
Now, with the new book, as well as we've seen with a lot of codexes that are out there, they come with the new warlord traits. Now, I've looked through the warlord traits in this book, and I'm just taken aback. I love them, and as a Tyranid player, I'm a little jealous. So, Rob, why don't you give us a rundown of the new warlord traits in the Imperial Guard book?
Alright, well, I know the first trait is Grand Strategist. It's a pretty good trait. If you roll a 1, you'll be getting to nominate D3 units in your entire army, and these units can outflank. Now, number 2 is Old Grudges. Old Grudges is a great one. Your warlord and his unit now have preferred enemy of Codex X. You get to pick one codex, and your warlord and his unit get preferred enemy. That's rerolling ones to hit and to wound. against enemies in that codex. Number 3 is Draconian Discipline. There's no more morale tests for your warlord in any unit within 12 inches that take 25% or more shooting casualties. It's fantastic if you have a blob of guard infantry. Number 4, Implacable Determination. It now makes your warlord and his unit relentless. It's great if you have heavy weapon teams raid in your command squads. Number 5, Bellowing Voice. Your warlord gains the Voice of Command special role, which allows him to issue orders, but not as a senior officer. If he already has Voice of Command, it increases his range to 18 inches. And number 6 is the Master of Command. Your warlord trait, again, can now issue orders, but now he can issue an extra order. So if you have a senior officer, you're now taking orders like Creed, 3 orders at a time. That's a big overhaul of warlord traits, and I don't even know if I would even roll in the big rulebook anymore.
They are fantastic. As I said, I'm jealous being a Tyranid player that our warlord traits weren't as good as those, but you know, we got to play with what we got.
Oh, yeah.
And now with the warlord traits as well, there's a certain there's a thing that says that if you do want to play the full tank army and you take a HQ that is, or a warlord that is a tank commander, how does the warlord traits affect them?
Well, tank commanders can only roll in the Imperial Guard Codex warlord trait table, and they only roll a single D3 on it, and that's all they can get, either 1, 2, or 3.
Okay, so they can't even get Implacable Determination, Bellowing Voice, or Master of Command.
Nope.
They can only get the first 3.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well that's the big changes so far of the new book. Next we'll get into HQs. Who are the Astra Militarum without their inspirational leaders? In the HQ section, we will talk about those leaders who are right at the front lines, as well as the ones who are sipping wine back in the command tent. So, without further ado, Rob, what do we have with the new HQ?
Well, Ryan, brand new HQs, tank commanders. I told you about them a little bit earlier. They're fantastic. You get one Leman Russ and another Leman Russ, and one of your Leman Russes is a tank commander. Now, you need a minimum of 2 Leman Russes in a unit to have a tank commander as your HQ. The problem I find with the tank commander as the HQ is you better go big or go home. Take Pask, because Pask is now in the HQ slot. From rerolling failed armor penetration rolls against vehicles to having a rending Punisher cannon, twin-linked Vanquishers, and even firing a large blast Executioner cannon. He's changed completely since the last book, and his new rule Crackshot makes it so any failed armor penetration roll, he gets to reroll.
So Pask sounds really awesome now.
He is very good, a big update from the last edition. He no longer has to sit still in his Leman Russ to use his Crackshot special roll, and he can even now issue tank orders. But these are unique to tank commanders, and there are 3 of these orders. The first tank order is Full Throttle. It's exactly what it sounds. The Leman Russ may be a heavy vehicle, but now you can move flat out and move D6 plus 6 inches. You still cannot shoot though. The second order is Gunners Kill on Sight. Now your Leman Russ platoon has split fire. Your tank commander can fire at a different target than the other Leman Russes in his platoon. Those are all of his weapons, not just one. The last order is Strike and Shroud. It's almost exactly what it sounds. All of your Leman Russes fire their weapons at one target, and then they launch their smoke launchers. Now they have a 5-up cover save and can fire their guns in the same turn.
That's absolutely incredible. I know playing Space Wolves, I would love to have that ability to do with my Rhinos, being able to shoot and then pop smoke. Is there a downside to having a tank commander as an HQ though?
The big downside is your HQ can be completely one-shot. one stray melta-gun will explode your warlord, and there's no chance of survival. There is no armor save. The other downside is your HQ slot is now sinking most of your points. These are big Lehman Russ units you're taking, 150 points apiece. It's gonna get ugly in that HQ slot.
Would you save a tank commander for bigger games, say around 1750 to 2000, like 1750 and above?
I would say yes, unless you're going to do a dedicated tank army. Unless you want your entire army to be mechanized for fluff reasons, I would say they're better reserved for bigger games. Because even Pask comes in at an extra 70 points.
Even though they're subject to one shot, they're still hiding behind armor 14. They seem to be a great inclusion in the HQ slot. So what else do we have in our HQ section?
Well, we have company command squads, again. They're great, and now they've lowered in points, but not really. A company command squad has some of the same options they had before. They can take carapace armor, they can have meta packs, which have become significantly cheaper, by half, to give your entire command squad feel no pain. Your orders are still fantastic for your senior command squad, and we'll go over those in just a minute. The big changes to your command squad are the Astropath, the Master of the Fleet. There are no more bodyguards either. So a Master of the Fleet now has 2 fleet orders. These fleet orders, Navy orders, these Navy orders are just like any order you issue. You make a leadership test, you get below his leadership, which is 7. It's acceptable, but the orders now stack with other fleet officers. You have 2 orders. You have intercept reserves, which give -1 to the opponent's reserve rolls. Or you have the opposite, which give you +1 to your reserve rolls. It's fantastic. The Astropath is now a level 1 telepathy psyker. You get 1 spell from the telepathy tree in the big rule book. Last but not least, for the command squad, you have the Master of Ordnance, which remained unchanged, except for his points cost. All of the 3 specialists from the squad went down by at least 5 to 10 points. But the squad itself went up 10 points. Again, it's a little bit cheaper, but not really.
Now, I know you've used command squads in games that we've had before, but benefits of taking a command squad?
Well, they're great if you have a lot of infantry on the board. You issue orders, and orders are fantastic. Again, we'll go over these in a little bit. And you also need to kill the entire command squad to get that warlord point, if the command squad is your warlord.
So command squad is 4 or 5 people. You have to kill them all to end up getting that. That's pretty amazing.
Now, upgrades to the command squad, as always, are replace the company commander. You have Lord Castellan Creed, who hasn't changed much since the last book, except he not only has 1 warlord trait from Supreme Commander, he now has 2. The only warrior that changed on Creed was that his 1 twin-linked hotshot last pistol is now 2 regular hotshot last pistols, so he does have gunfighter. He has the voice of command, as any senior officer should, and tactical genius, as he always does. But he no longer gets to choose a single unit to infiltrate, as he used to. Now tactical genius throws away the concept of a Voxcaster. He issues 3 orders, which every unit can reroll for free without the cost of a Voxcaster. That is saving you 5 points on every unit, including the command squad itself. Now, if you're taking Creed, you may as well take Kel. It's a lot of points to sink in, but he's great since there are no more bodyguards. He still has the Listen Up Maggots rule, which allow you to take his leadership to issue orders. And he also has the Lookout rule, again. Yeah. He is one of the only bodyguards you can take next to Nork. Now, Nork in this edition, I believe, has become significantly more powerful. He's 5 points more expensive, but can now deliver a thundering headbutt that is Strength 8 AP 3 when he's felled in close combat. He gets to make this attack in addition to any attacks that he has made already in that turn, at Initiative Step 1.
So as long as he loses his last wound, he's able to make more attacks.
Yes.
Before you remove him from the field.
Before you remove him from play, he can either take his regular attacks, which he has 4 at strength 5, or you can take the 1 Thundering Headbutt, which is a close combat crack missile.
That just, to me, that is going to make for a lot of fun, a lot of narrative when he's headbutting a Trigon or a Hive Tyrant or, or a Demon Lord, any of those guys. It's going to be a lot of fun.
The last replacement for a command squad is Colonel Iron Hand Strachan. And as always, he is a beat stick. Now, he initially went up 50 points, but he can now smash at base strength 6. All of his attacks are AP 2. He has a 3+ armor save and he's toughness 4. He's the equivalent of a Space Marine captain, but in a guardsman. He has initiative 3, so he'll still be going last in combat against anything that isn't human or orc. But with the ability to smash and the Monster Hunter special rule, he can now hit monsters at the same strength they hit him. Strength 10, AP 2.
So he's basically now a monstrous creature on a small base.
Oh yeah, he's almost the equivalent.
That is absolutely crazy. Anything else in the HQ section?
Yes. Commissars. They're still HQs, but only Lord Commissars now. A Lord Commissar went down in points, but again, we come to the not really. He may have gone down his points, but anything he takes is a little bit more expensive than it used to be from its War Gear section. So, a Lord Commissar, say, with 2 Power Fists, would still round up to 100 points. Regular Commissars, you can now only take a single one for each command squad or platoon command squad in your army. And you can attach them to different units, and they're no longer only takeable by guard blobs. You can now attach them to Ogrins, Bulgrins, veteran squads. Plenty of things that give them stubborn and have LD9 now. It's a great, fantastic little thing that they can do. They're in the HQ section, but do not take up a HQ slot in your force organization. The last character I'd like to talk about in the HQ section is Commissar Yarrick. Commissar Yarrick has come to become my favorite character in the Astra Militarum Codex. He went down by 40 points, and he is now a senior officer, sporting most of the rules he did in the previous edition. He still has his Power Claw and his Bale Eye. His Power Field Generator gives him a 4+ invulnerable save, but enemies no longer have to reroll successful attempts to wound him anymore. His Warlord trait is Draconian Discipline, which we went over in the Warlord trait section. It's fantastic because as a frontline commander, he's the guy you want to give your aura to. He no longer makes units near him stubborn or fearless, but he is a Leadership 10 stubborn character, which means you'll never be rolling lower than 10, which is fantastic.
Does he still have the ability that if he's wounded and you take him off the table, that he can come back over and over again?
Yes, he has his own special reanimation protocol rule. That's not what it's called, but every time he loses his last wound, you place him on his side, on the table. On a roll of a 3+, Yarrick returns with 1 wound, defiant. And you cannot block him from reanimating like you can regular Necrons by parking a Land Raider on him.
Well, it is truly great to see one of the most iconic 40k characters still pushing forward and being as strong as ever in the new book.
And I do believe he's as strong as he's ever been. Yeah. Last but not least for the entire HQ section are 4 odd choices you can take that do not require a Force Orc slot. These are Ministorum Priests as they've always been, but they no longer you allowed to reroll all failed to hit rolls in close combat the first turn you assault. Now they have War Hymns just like in the Inquisition Codex. Primaris Psychers, they do not require a Force Orc slot, and now they can be Mastery level 2 for only 75 points. That's 5 points more than their beforehand Mastery level 1. They don't have Lightning Arc or Night Shroud anymore in their book, but now Imperial Guardsmen can choose from Biomancy, Divination, Pyromancy, and Telekinesis. I don't think giving Imperial Guards Divination was a very good idea, but I love it.
Divination, that's the one with prescience and a bunch of the Eldar trickery that's used.
Yes.
Oh, great. So we're going to have lots of fun
Oh,
with
yeah.
Imperial Guards now, too. Okay. So I believe there's just one more HQ to talk about.
Yes, and that's the Engine Seer. Now, before the Engine Seer allowed you to repair vehicles, and he still does. He has a servo arm, and you can take servitor crews with him. But now he comes with an interesting new rule that I'll see a lot of on my table. It's called Awaken the Machine, and instead of shooting, you pick one vehicle within 12 inches of the Engine Seer that turn, and it gains power of the machine spirit, a rule usually reserved for Space Marines. Now, this rule combined with tank commanders can make for some serious damage.
Now, power of the machine spirit, Imperial Guard never had access to that before?
No, they never have.
Wow, that's a really big deal, because that can fire one of their weapons at ballistic skill.
It lets them fire one of their weapons at full ballistic skill, but this weapon can also be fired at a different target. Combined with tank orders from a tank commander unit with 3 tanks, it allows them to fire each Leman Russ turret weapon at an individual unit. It can be devastating.
Wow. So there's a lot of good choices in the HQ slot. So what, in your mind, would you say would be the most fun HQ to play and the most competitive HQ to play?
Well, I think the most fun and the most competitive are both one unit. I think it's the Imperial Tank Commanders. You can have the most fun with them, but they're also reserved for larger point costs. But they can also be extremely competitive depending on what you kit each one of your Leman Russes with. You can have Exterminators, Leman Rush Punishers, Demolishers in your unit, each capable of firing at different targets. In smaller point value games though, I would go straight to Yarrick, hands down.
Now, would you say with the HQ slots there's any auto-include headquarters?
I would have to say it's Yarrick because the fact that he's nigh unkillable can issue orders now and still reserves the same rules like Eternal Warrior that he used to have, that he'd probably be the most competitive go-to auto-include HQ in this book.
Excellent. Speaking of orders, Imperial Guards have always been known for the orders that they receive at the beginning of each turn. Now in the Astra Militarum book, we have some old orders that haven't really changed, and then we have some new orders as well. So Rob, how about we start talking about the orders?
Alright, most of the orders have changed slightly, despite some of them keeping their same name. The only order that has really stayed the same is Move, 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 and First Rank Fire, Second Rank Fire. The exception to First Rank Fire and Second Rank Fire is that now it works on hotshot weaponry, as well as regular lasguns. The first order, Take Aim, now gives your entire unit the Precision Shot special rule. You can pick out any character in any unit you want. Heavy bolters, rocket launchers, flamethrowers. They're all there, right for you to pick off. The next one is Smite at Will, a fantastic little order if you keep heavy weapons in your units. It allows you to use the Split Fire special rule. It's great for firing rockets and autocannons at tanks, yet still keeping your infantry concentrated on suppressive fire. Forward for the Emperor! Your units can now shoot and then make a run move. Thanks, Eldar. Suppressive fire, it's just as it sounds. Your unit's weapons now have the pinning special rule. Now on to senior orders. These orders can only be issued by senior officers. Bring It Down has always been a popular order, but now instead of rerolls, they put in the traditional rules Monster Hunter and Tank Hunter given to a specific unit. Fire on my target. There's no more rerolls of cover saves. Now you're ignoring cover completely.
The ignore cover. It's the bane of Tyranids everywhere.
And it's the bane of a lot of armies.
Yeah, that ignore cover is just, they seem to be adding it to everything nowadays.
Oh yeah. The last rule is Get Back in the Fight. The ordered unit immediately regroups or recovers from going to ground and can act normally that turn. It's a pretty good order, especially if some of your men are running away. And those are all the orders the Imperial Guard can issue.
Excellent. Now, what are some of your favorite orders? Now, I know you've used First Rank Fire, Second Rank Fire on me on many occasions, but what are some of your favorites of the newer ones?
I think my favorites of the newest ones must be Forward for the Emperor. The ability to jump out of cover, get that rapid fire, then be able to run right back in is a great bonus for Imperial Guard.
I think the other one that gives a blob of Imperial Guard the precision shot rule can just mess some people up.
You can definitely go character hunting with this, but we have to remember, they're all las guns.
So from where I'm sitting, not being an Imperial Guard player, it seems like the HQ section has a lot of different characters that can supercharge and be a catalyst for many different units and change the way you play with this new codex. Lot of choices, great HQ selection. We've gone through it. Now let's get to the troops and see how they have changed. Astra Militarum, Imperial Guard, Hammer of the Emperor. Whatever you call these, the troops are always the backbone of this army. So let's see exactly how they've changed in the new codex. Rob?
Well, Ryan, the troop section has not really entailed too many changes, especially in the infantry platoons. At base cost, they're a little bit cheaper than they used to be, but after upgrades, you're paying the same for what you used to get. I think it's fair because the infantry platoons have always been a strong point, but they've also been a weak point as it's quantity of numbers.
Now this quantity of numbers, we've lovingly referred to them as blob squads. Are the blob squads even viable anymore with the new codex?
You know what, for fun, I'd say yes, they're still extremely viable. They're fun to play, you can still pump in 50 guardsmen in a unit. But as well, with divination, these 50 guardsmen and a Primaris Psyker, they can all have a 4+ invulnerable save, putting them in competitive meta.
That, and included with some of the orders you can have, that could be very dangerous.
Now, unfortunately, Penal Legion have been removed from the book. They were a cheap, good go-to infantry unit that you can keep in reserves to protect the rest, to protect your investment of a kill point, troop choices, and let's just face it, their little prison shank rules, they were pretty fun to play. As always, veterans are still in the codex, and their doctrines have gotten a lot cheaper, from 10 to 15 points. Grenadiers is now 15 points for a 4+ armor save, which is something you used to pay 3 points a model for. Your forward sentries that now have snare mines, unfortunately they're not defensive grenades. The opponent only counts as making a disorganized charge, so you can no longer claim the stealth save if your opponent is within 8 inches of you. Demolitions remains the same cost as it did before at 30 points, but now that you're not taking crack grenades, I find it's a better investment as you're not paying for crack, frag, and melt-a-bombs anymore. You still get the demolition charge, which is still as powerful as ever, but now people will be scared when they see that you have melt-a-bombs on 10 guardsmen in a unit, and you're paying cheaper for. Heavy flamers have gotten a little bit cheaper as well. Cheaper by half as much, 15 points. You can now take a heavy flamer in each squad. Still only one, but you can substitute this heavy flamer for a different special weapon, still allowing you to take 3 veterans with special weapons in your unit. The triple plasma vets is still alive and strong. Unfortunately, like I mentioned before, Baston is gone, but Harker is still kicking around with his heavy bolter, Payback. It's now a heavy bolter with rending, but he lost his stealth special rule, so you couldn't stack it with the snare mines with the forward sentries doctrine. Overall, I believe veterans got a lot better because they're a little bit cheaper, and now you could probably field twice as many than you used to for those hardcore veteran players.
Now, Harker, do a lot of Imperial Guard players use him?
He used to be used a lot to give your entire unit stealth, and what that did with the forward sentries was it basically gave you a 5-up save anywhere, and whenever you were in cover, you always had a 3+ or a 2+ cover save.
Okay, so stealth, shrouded, all of that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Has he reduced in points cost, or is he more expensive? Is he still a viable person to take?
I don't believe he's as viable as he used to be, as he lost a few special rules. You still can't take the Grenadier Doctrine with him, but you won't see him in competitive play.
While we're talking about troops, why don't we discuss something equally important, the vehicles that carry the troops. Let's talk about dedicated transports.
Alright, we'll start off with the transport we used to have, the Chimera. It got a 10-point base upgrade. A lot of people think that might be a little bit steep, but with the new last gun arrays allowing you to fire 6 last guns from the hatch and 2 special weapons, it's an increase in fire points for regular last weapons. It's still a mobile command vehicle, so you can issue orders while you're inside of it, and it's still amphibious, so it ignores water features altogether. The second transport is one many people have started to dread, the Torox. The Torox is armor 11-10-10. It sports a twin-linked autocannon which holds a little bit more firepower than the Chimera. It doesn't have any last gun arrays, but it does have 2 firing hatches on each side of its hull. The other variant is the Torox Prime, and the Torox Prime is reserved for Scions and only Scions. It has the same armor, can get the same war gear, but still only reserved for the Scions. It is a fast vehicle that can sport an array of weapons such as 2 crack missile launchers, hotshot volley guns, which are AP3 strength 4. It can even have a sub-Punisher cannon called the Torox Punisher Cannon, which is a 10-shot strength 4 twin-linked weapon. It houses a lot more firepower, and it can fulfill both the roles of anti-tank and anti-infantry at a higher cost.
So the hotshot volley gun is good for taking out those pesky Space Marines.
Yes, with 4 strength 4 shots, moving 12 inches, it'll definitely hurt some Space Marine and Armor 3 units.
So that covers our troops and our dedicated transports. So now let's go see what we have over in the elite section. Where troops are the backbone of the army, elites are cutting edge. They're the specialists that are getting behind enemy lines and getting the job done. So let's go check out the elite section. Rob?
The elite section has always been strong for Imperial Guard with their stormtroopers that have been now replaced with Imperial Scions. Now the Militarum Tempestus Scions are now taken almost exactly as infantry platoons, except the requirements are a little bit different. They're the same outload as stormtroopers, except they lost their behind enemy lines, their little doctrines they used to have, but now they have permanently moved through cover. They kept their hotshot weaponry, and they were reduced in points, starting at 70 points for 5. You can also take a command squad for your Tempestus that can issue orders. They're basically like a platoon command with hotshot weaponry and veteran stats. They're pretty fantastic, but a lot of people have missed the traditional stormtroopers. The big advantage with the Scions is now you can have multiple squads only taking one elite's choice, leaving room for Ogrins. Ogrins have not changed, save for the fact that now they have proper models that are made in plastic.
No more failcast?
No more failcasting for them. Now the Bolgrins is where the big change is. You might have thought that Ogrins had the close combat ability that they needed to survive, but those Ripper guns are more powerful than you might think. And now with the Bolgrins, they have slab shields, power mauls, 4+ carapace armor, and they can even holster handheld grenade launchers that fire assault weapons. Now the Bolgrin has the same stats as your traditional Ogrin. They're a little bit more points, but the first thing they get is their slab shield. This shield acts much like a shield wall. When two Bolgrins with slab shields are in base-to-base contact, you get the same save on a T5 model as a Space Marine, a 3+ save, as long as they're in base-to-base contact. Now the slab shield also allows them to give anything obscured by the slab shield a cover save of 1 point better than it normally would for units blocking line of sight. They could, for 15 points more, they're getting a little bit more expensive, you can give them a 5+ invulnerable save on your T5 model, keeping your 4+ armor save, but also a power maul, giving them a strength 7 furious charge attack on the first turn. No, this is not only one attack, it is multiple attacks. They get 4 on the charge, 5 for the bonehead.
And what is the bonehead?
Your bonehead is your main sergeant for your unit. He's Got 1 higher leadership, and works exactly as a sergeant. +1 attack, +1 leadership. Next is the Ratlings. The Ratlings stayed exactly the same, save for one rule. Shoot sharp and scarper. They can now shoot their sniper rifles and run in the same turn. This is a great bonus to them as sniper rifles are heavy weapons.
So with that ability, they'll be able to shoot and then hide in some forest or hide in some cover or get out of enemy lines of fire.
Yeah, that's what the Ratlings are for.
Nice.
They get in, they use their precision shots to take out what needs to be taken out with their rending rifles, and then they go back right in now. Last in the elite section are the Word Vane Psychers. Now these Psychers are different from the old Psychers that Imperial Guards have been used to have. They can choose from Pyromancy, Biomancy, Telekinesis, and Divination, just like the other Psychers. But they only come in at Mastery Level 1. They're 10 points apiece, and you can have a lot of them in a unit, up to 10.
In this new codex, are your opponents are we going to be seeing a lot more Psychers taking the field for Imperial Guard?
I don't see the Word Vane Psychers seeing as much use as the Primaris Psychers, as now your Primaris Psychers can take level 2 and don't take a Force Org slot. I think we'll be seeing a lot more Primaris Psychers on the board, especially with Divination, helping the Imperial Guard do what they need to do.
So the Stormtroopers were the most competitive elite unit in the old codex. Now that they no longer exist, what do you think is the most competitive elite selection in this codex?
The most competitive elite selection in this codex, I believe, will be either the Militarum Tempestus platoons, especially using lower points of them, as they can still drop in with Deep Strike and have Meltagun support. And I do believe that Ratlings we might see a lot more of now that they can snipe and move on the same turn.
So there we have it. Looks like we have a lot of solid choices in the elite section for the Astra Militarum. So let's push forward into the fast attack. From the flame tanks to the flyers, fast attack has always been important in the Imperial Guard army. Let's see how they are in the new Astra Militarum era.
I believe that the fast attack have been properly balanced in this edition. With a few point hikes and a few descent in points, I believe that it is now a lot fairer than what it used to be, especially with the overpowered vendetta that we have seen. But we'll start with the Sentinels. Scout Sentinels and Armored Sentinels have both taken a points drop. We might be seeing a lot more little units of these Sentinels, especially with the other fast attack, going slightly up in points. Next is the Rough Riders. Rough Riders have never been a very strong queue for the Imperial Guard, and with the loss of Mogul Khmer, they've just taken a significant hit, as now they no longer gain a slew of special rules that made them what they used to be. Hellhound and Banewolves have both gone down in price, only by 5 points. The Devil Dog has taken 5 points to its own to make it a little bit more expensive. These tanks are very, very versatile, from anti-infantry, from poison 2+ AP3 flame weapons, to melt-a-blasts. I personally love all of the variants as they can do every job, especially in fast attack. Now we'll move on to the Flyers. First we'll start with the Valkyrie Squadron. The Valkyrie got a little bit more expensive. It's sensible. Its transport capacity stayed the same, so did its armor. Its loadout is exactly the same with the exception of a few changes in the vehicle war gear list. The Vendetta, unfortunately, took a huge hit. It went up by 50 points, and its transport capacity dropped by half. So it could now only carry small command squads, special weapon squads, and Tempestus Scions.
Now, the Vendetta itself was, before the whole Helldrake era, was the most feared flyer, I would probably say, in 40k. And even so now, even with the Helldrake in, the Vendetta was still a menacing thing to see on the board with all its las guns and everything. Are we still going to be seeing that in this new codex?
Well, actually, I've been running most of my armies without flyers at all, as the price hike has made it a little bit too expensive for my tastes. And with the half capacity that the Vendetta has, I can no longer carry my veteran squads. So I don't think you'll see many as you used to. Maybe one Vendetta per army at most, probably 2 Valkyries.
Well, there you have it. There's our flame tanks and our flyers in our fast attack section. And now we go into, last but not least, heavy support. Let's face it, if you play Imperial Guard, you're a treadhead. You're here for the tanks and everything they can do. In the Astra Militarum book, they've even introduced the first ever apocalyptic template into regular games. Scares the crap out of me. Let's go see what our heavy support looks like with Rob.
Thanks, Ryan. From the first time I laid eyes on the Imperial Guard, the first thing that was brought to my attention were the tanks. They're phenomenal, especially the Leman Russ. The Leman Russ is a fantastic tank, and its variants complete every single role. In the heavy support slot of the Astra Militarum Codex, it dropped in points. Not just one variant, most of the variants.
Now, with all the different variations of the Leman Russ, what is the least competitive variant, and what is one of your favorites?
Well, I believe the least competitive variant is the Exterminator Leman Russ. There's no big draw to 14 front armor with measly little autocannons, especially when you can get an Aegis line and a quad gun for a third of the points. Now, my favorite Leman Russ has always been the Punisher. The sheer firepower you can push out of one tank. I don't care if the AP is dash, I phenomenally love this tank. Next is the Basilisk Battery. Unfortunately, the Basilisk is now the only heavy anti-tank artillery left in this book. The Colossus, the Griffin, and the Medusa have all lost their spots in this book. Unfortunately, they're gone. But the Basilisk has always been a mainstay and it has not changed in points at all.
Well, let me just say, for all the people who don't play Imperial Guard, yay, the Medusa's gone! Okay, what do we have next?
Alright. Next we had a Manicore that was increased by 10 points. But the fact of the matter is with the Manicore is now not all of its missiles are removed with a single weapons destroyed result. It has 4 separate missiles now, so you need 4 weapons destroyed results to destroy them all.
Wow.
Next is the Death Strike, which is one of my favorite weapons in this entire book. And it's so big and so powerful, it was even given its own special rule called It's No Ordinary Weapon. Now this does bring the first 10-inch apocalyptic blast into 40k that is not used in Apocalypse or in the Escalation. So you players out there that are playing this, you'll have to be bringing your 10-inch blasts just to see how many models you can fit under it. It also fires now on a 4+ instead of a 6+ on its first turn, but cannot fire if it moved. And it can only gain the benefit of reducing its counter to lower numbers if it has not moved in previous turns. Overall, its stat line has stayed the same, but I do believe, with no change in points, it is the best heavy support that has been updated in this book.
So with that update and it's starting at 4+, all of your opponents have even less time now to try and destroy it so it won't fire.
Yes, I could see it more in competitive play, now that on the second turn you can alpha strike an entire gun line of infantry and tanks on the second turn on only the roll of a 3+.
So people will have to play smarter against this. They can't really castle behind Aegis defense lines or those gun lines that we see can just be totally obliterated by this one-shot weapon.
After it's fired, it becomes a glorified heavy bolter, but if you use it correctly, it can win you every time a game. Next is the Hydra. The Hydra went down slightly in points, only by 5, but it lost its auto-targeting system and is now open-topped. It used to deny the opponent a jinx save on all of its skimmers or flyers, but now you can take that save. And now there's a new kit, and you'll be seeing a lot more Hydras than you used to, because now you don't have to buy the overpriced model from Forge World. In that same kit, you see the last of the heavy support, the Wyvern artillery batteries. Now these batteries are extremely powerful, but only used in anti-infantry situations. Each Wyvern has 2 twin-linked Storm Shard mortars, which each fire 2 small blasts, which are Strength 4, AP 6, Shred, and Ignores Cover with the Barrage special rule. That means it'll be reaching behind lines and re-rolling any failed to wound rolls. And it's a perfect weapon for getting behind those pesky lines and denying those really good cover saves. Now you can have up to 3 of these in a unit, which means collectively you're getting 12 small blasts.
So where the Death Strike missile would be your kill everything behind the line, these weapons are more precision or pinpointing what you want to kill behind that line.
Yes, they've become the prime anti-horde weapon of the Imperial Guard and Astra Militarum. The amount of precise firepower with twin-link barrage weapons and the Ignores Cover, with the precision firepower that it gives you, you'll be able to pinpoint your blasts on entrenched enemy infantry for those units that are getting those 2+, 3+ cover saves instead of their 5+ armor saves.
Now, in the last Codex, the Leman Russ was a favorite among a lot of Imperial Guard players. Is there anything else that is going to overtake the Leman Russ in that capacity in this Codex?
Well, I do believe the Leman Russ is still the big daddy of the armor in this game. It'll be taken in most lists, but personally, even with the points drops, I've been leaning less towards the Leman Russ and more towards the odd and specialized artillery units because they're a lot cheaper and more effective at a situational role. The Leman Russ can fill any role it can with its variants, but one Leman Russ can only do one thing really well. The artillery does the best job it does for what you pay for it. You have the big blasts, you have the small blasts, the anti-infantry, the anti-tank. You have to be prepared to defend it. You have to buy those Aegis lines, cramp up your infantry lines, and you have to be prepared to take losses, especially if you're taking units.
So, with heavy support done and out of the way, we've finished all the sections in the new Codex, so let's go to our final thoughts. Well, everyone, here we are. If you've watched the entire video, thank you. If you just skipped ahead to this part, well, we're doing our final thoughts on the Codex Astra Militarum. So, Rob, what would you say overall about this book?
Well, overall, Ryan, I think it's easily one of the top 3 codexes that have been released on hardcover for 6th edition, and that's not just coming from an Imperial Guard player. I do also play a few other armies, and I can say this one will definitely be my prime list from now on. The synergy that each unit in this book has with each other as a whole is fantastic. And as long as you work well on a list and practice, I think it'll still be one of the top standing tournament lists that you'll see.
Now, with all the pluses that we've said about this book throughout our review, what are some of the negatives about the new book?
Well, the synergy doesn't come naturally. The book in its own can have many different wrong ways to make a list, and that's something that as an Imperial Guard player we know very much of. You could be lacking total anti-armor or total anti-infantry support in a lot of zones, and putting points where they don't belong is something that a lot of Guard players I've realized do, such as throwing too many vehicle upgrades on something that has low armor, or even taking too many points in a command squad without giving it proper protection. It's definitely an army that you need to keep discipline with and stay together as a whole, work together as a whole, because the armies separated will crumble.
Now, the Imperial Guard have always been known to have leaf blower lists. Now, with this new codex, how are you going to blow your opponents?
I will take as many large and small pie plates that ignore cover. To be completely honest, the ignore cover lists have taken predominant standings in tournaments. And I do believe that with Hydras, Basilisks, and Wyverns, you'll be able to take care of anything, especially pesky Demon and Tyrannid flyer monstrous creature spams. You hit them with the Hydras and they hit the ground, first rank fire, second rank fire.
So Rob, what about the actual quality of the book itself?
Well, you have to hand it to GW. They actually have phenomenal art on their codexes, and the hardcover is great. I definitely pay the extra money, especially with all the fantastic artwork, the introduction, and the fluff. Everything in the book, from all of its colored pictures to even the old ones that used to not be colored. We even have a lot of art pertaining to the secondary companies of the Imperial Guard, like the Vestroyans, the Steel Legion, and the Catachan.
Yeah, and as always, the book itself has this little paper in the back that gives you all the rules that you need to know to play the army. You know, I really think they do a great number with these hardcover books. Yes, it costs a little bit more, but you know, the quality has really, really improved. With that, I'd like to thank Imperial Rob from the Dorklords Game Club for coming and giving us his review of the Imperial Guard Codex. And I'd like to thank all our viewers for watching. If you like this video, subscribe down below. Leave a comment if you have any questions for Rob or myself or any of the members of Dorklords. And as always, keep them dice rolling.